Hello and welcome to my first ever card making tutorial. Your feedback on my whole video has been so positive and so kind that I couldn't wait anymore, and I just went ahead and created this video. Please excuse my voice if I sound a bit funny. I'm just battling through a cold and my nose is clogged and my throat hurts, but I thought I'd give this a try. I'll be doing a watercolor card today. I'll be watercoloring on this piece of cardstock, and then I'll be layering a die cut on top of it. This die cut will be from the Scripty Hello die from Fawn, and I'll be showing you in detail how we're going to go about this. Now, before we start, these are the colors I'm going to use: Spun Sugar, Picked Raspberry, and Seedless Preserves. They are Distress ink colors. They blend very well with water. I'll be using this white brush simply because I'm going to be covering a lot of the card, and it's just easier to do if you have a very wide brush. And I don't need to go into any details, but I have this more detailed brush available in case I need to, fix something up, but I might not even end up using it. Off screen, I have two plastic cups with clean water, because that's what you need when you do watercoloring. I have an old towel just to dry off anything that might go wrong. And let's get started. When you work with watercolors, it's very likely that your paper is going to warp, even if you're using good watercolor paper. So I've learned this trick from Jennifer McGuire. I'm just using some regular painter's tape, and I'm taping down my Holtz Watercolor paper onto a piece of cardboard. This is just an old packaging that I cut up, and now it's really flat, and it won't warp upwards as much. It will still warp a bit, but not as badly. So the first step that I've learned this time from Dawn Plus 9 is to moisten your paper, because the watercolor will go where the water is, but if you have dry areas on your paper, then the watercolor will not go there. It's a little bit hard to explain, but I hope you will see it. The first color I'm going to be using is Spun Sugar. This is the lightest of my colors. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to smush the ink pad onto my craft surface. That's why I'm using the Ranger Craft Sheet, because it's very easy to clean up. And I'm going to pick up the color with my brush, and then I'm just going to dip the color onto the moistened surface. And as you can see, the color immediately starts to run. I'm not entirely sure what the English term for this is, but you can see that it doesn't stick in one place. It does, it does run across the card where the water is. And you can see to the left of the color, the cardstock is dry, and so the color doesn't go there. I'm already up to the next color. This is Picked Raspberry. It's much more intense, and you saw me moistening the area between the Spun Sugar and Picked Raspberry before I picked up the second color for the first time, and that was to make sure the colors would blend much better. Because what I do not want a clear line between the colors. I want the colors to run into each other, and it's a little bit tricky considering that the Spun Sugar is such a light color. So here I'm going back just with water to allow the colors to mix a little bit better, and I'm gonna let it sit for a while and then come back to it. This is clear water that I'm using now, and I'm just re-moistening the surface to make sure that the last color, the Seedless Preserves, will blend nicely. And you can see that the Picked Raspberry is already seeping into the third section, and this is exactly what I want. And I just love it when I dab the color onto the moistened surface and it immediately starts to run and, just have a character of its own. I just love this about watercolor. I usually don't like to give up control, but I feel that with this technique it's just so much fun, because you never know what the end result will be. And as you can see, the Picked Raspberry and Seedless Preserves blend already quite nicely together. Now I'm going to go back and add more colors, and I've just speeded this process up because it's just me basically dabbing either the same colors or water into the areas that I've colored previously, just to make the color a little bit more intense and also to allow the colors to blend a little bit better. I'm done with the coloring now, and what I'm doing is I'm picking up the piece of cardboard to which I've taped my cardstock, and I'm just moving it around to have the colors well, you know, blend a little bit better, and I'm using my heat tool to dry the project a little bit because I want to continue working. I don't want to wait. And this is how it looks when it's done, and you can see that the colors blended really nicely. When I started out, it didn't look like it would work the way I intended to, but now it's actually working rather nicely. I set my cardstock aside just to give it time to really dry out, and I've cut the hello from the Scripty hello die from Fawn a couple of times. And the reason for this is that I want to layer these hellos on top of each other to have one big sentiment. So it's supposed to go onto the card like this, and I've already made a card previously with just one die cut, and you will see what the problem is. When I adhered it with foam tape, you can see the foam tape very clearly behind the die cut, and it just annoyed the hell out of me, to be honest. Excuse my language. It just annoyed me because I didn't want to see the foam tape. So my plan is now to layer my die cuts on top of each other to have one thick element to put on my card. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use Glossy Accent, and I'm just going to dab Glossy Accents onto the die cuts. And I'm going to be very careful here not to use too much because you don't want the glue to squirt out on the side. It's going to be a huge mess. Glossy Accent is very strong, so you really only need to dab it on. And here I'm done now. I've layered all my die cuts on top of each other, and I have a thick and sturdy sentiment that I can put on my card. You can see how thick it is and how well it stands out. Next, I decided I wanted to layer my card onto colored cardstock, and I tried these two pink colors, and the first one was too intense for my taste. I feel that this blush pinkish color, the second one here, matches the spun sugar. So I've cut out my card base, which is a basic A2 size. That means 8.5 by 5.5. I've scored it already. So it's just easier for me to see where I need to adhere the watercolor panel, and I've cut this down as well, so I'll have a thin border around the white cardstock, and I'm using cheap foam tape here to adhere the watercolor panel to the card. And I'm using a liberal amount of foam tape simply because the paper is kind of warped and I need a strong adhesive to make sure it will lay flat. That's why I've used this much foam tape. I've already figured out off camera where exactly I need to place the front panel, so I'm using the lines on my grid mat. What a cool investment! Seriously, I'm so happy I made the investment into this grid mat because it's so much easier to align everything. I can't believe how it worked without a grid mat. Seriously, I'm so happy I have that. So I've pressed it down and I'm pushing the front panel down, and it's adhered nicely. And now I'm going to put the hello on there as well. And you want to be really careful with this last step when you adhere the Glossy Accents or whatever adhesive you're using. If you use too much, it will squirt out the sides and it will ruin your project, especially with the Glossy Accents, because it doesn't dry with a matte finish, it dries with a glossy finish, as the name implies. So test it out beforehand, but be really careful how much adhesive you use. So since I've tried before like where exactly the sentiment needs to go, I can adhere it rather quickly. You know, you didn't see me fiddle around with the placement of the sentiment, and I did not push down hard when I just placed my fingers on the sentiments because I don't want the Glossy Accent to squirt out on the sides. I've learned the trick with the acrylic block from Nicole McGuire. Oh, I'm sorry, Nicole McGurk. Sorry for butchering your name. And while the acrylic block is holding down the sentiment and the Glossy Accents, you know, start to adhere it, I'm checking which of my pretty pink posh sequins I'll be using, and I'm undecided between the clear and the white one, but I will go with the white one because the white one matches the white die cut better, and I feel that the clear one would be a little bit too distracting on this particular project. This is actually about 15 minutes later because it took me so long to figure out where to place my sequins. And I'm going to use this quick sticks tool. It comes like this. You can pull out the end, and it has a very pointy tip and a flat tip. And the other end is sticky, and it helps me to pick up my sequins while I squirt just a drop of Glossy Accents onto the card. So that's what I'm doing right now. I'm squirting a drop of Glossy Accents down there, and then I'm going to go into surgical mode, and I'm going to use two tools, it looks very professional, to adhere this one sequin to the card. And well, you can see that the sequin fell off the tacky end of the quick sticks, but that's just because I've been using this part for so long now, and I just need to remove the little greenish stuff that comes out from the tip and squirt out a little bit more, and then it will be sticky again. And of course, last but not least, I'm going to use my Wink of Stella clear brush to add some glitter and shimmer to the die cut. It just looks so pretty, I can't help myself. And I mean, it's a pink card, so obviously I'm going to send it to a girl or to a woman, so that's okay if it has a little bit of glitter. And that's actually already it. That was my first card tutorial. I hope you enjoyed it, and please leave me a thumbs up if you liked it, or leave a comment, and thank you so much for stopping by.